Welcome to Quick and Early Miracles. Today I will be talking about the what you want though door, and also the what you want though 3D glasses. And this is, if you've ever followed Abraham Hicks' work, this is kind of like when she talks about there are two ends of the stick, and like, what end of the stick are you on? And I think that at first is a little, it's tough. It's tough to kind of get. And this also, I'm going to talk about it from what I found with the work that I've done with people around language. And so this is a circle, I just made it up today. Let's call it a definitional circle. And I use the word fit. And you see that it kind of ripples out into bigger circles. It's real interesting when you start to look at it. Or if you have any topics that are present for you and you want to talk about them, I want to talk about them, so you say them. It's so nice to see you here. If you're there and you didn't just pop in, say hi so I know. So the what you want though door. This is such a fucking big changer when it comes to your mood. And your mood is super important for a lot of reasons, but keeping it real close and tight to what's practical, it's how you feel moment by moment. And that's pretty much your life. Good morning. So the what you want though door is where you might want to stand instead of at the I don't want this though door. Usually, hey, okay, I was hoping you'd be out there. Usually, let's say that you have a problem, and your problem is maybe you're not getting enough cash as you want or need, or you're missing a relationship, or the neighbors keep doing that shit, or your heart is broken from something a long time ago. And so generally what happens is you're very clear on what you don't want. Like, I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. And you take your little 4th of July pop-up fold open chair and you sit right down in front of that door. And you sit in front of the door, and everybody that walks past, even if you're not saying it out loud, you're saying it on your inside, you're like, I don't want this though. Don't like this. You're sitting in front, you're camped out at what you don't want, and you camp out there by your incessant focus on it. And guilty as I would identify something within me that I was like, oh, that could be better though. And I'd pull up my little chair, I sit right down in the middle of it, and I'd say okay, let's get more familiar with what I don't want, what I don't like, how this doesn't feel good, and spend a bunch of time just reviewing how I didn't like this and that didn't work out, and really standing and staying with that place of this isn't what I want. It takes a little guts, I think, to pick up your little chair and camp out in front of the what you do want though door. Because if you're in front of if you've been spending some time in front of one that you don't want, like you have, you've got kind of the outdoor indoor build out where you have all your little maybe you have the rug on the ground, so you have your pop-up chair, you have the rug, you might have a little bookshelf, maybe tape something onto a tree. You really owned that space and you're comfortable there. That's how you know where you go. If you have blank space in your head, if you need to connect with somebody, if you have to find importance, meaning, direction, it all comes from what you don't want. You know that you are special because this sucks and you can't get over it. You know what you need to focus towards. It's generally resolution of this, but you're not sure what exists beyond that. So do you really want to resolve it? So anyhow, let's say you're really set up in front of the door of what you don't want. To go in front of the new one, you generally have to risk disappointment. And I love to bunny ear, but these ones are because it is only the illusion of disappointment, and that you can make yourself feel that by how you see what's happening. And that's where I get this one, the What You Want Though 3D glasses. Those are not rose colored. They're not any type of color. They are clear, and they're different than the glasses you might regularly wear, because the glasses you might regularly wear have all the little notes of like how this can't be and this won't go there and you can't because. So you look out onto life, onto what's happening, and you look through all of these like this can't be stuff. That doesn't feel good either. So those also a huge mood killer. What I'm suggesting here, when you pack up camp and go in front of the What You Want Though door, you might be afraid because, like I said, what if there's nothing there? What if nothing ever comes out of that door? If you allow yourself to put these glasses on, then it doesn't matter if anything comes out of that door, because you are trusting that it is moving in the direction towards or forward. And you do that by recognizing you don't know when it is. Like, let's say that let's bring it real close. Let's say that you ordered Uber Eats, and your last Uber Eats came in a red car. So you're outside and you're looking at every red car that goes past because you think that's where they come. Our red car slows, looks at you, speeds up, goes off. You're disappointed. You're like, man, I thought that's what right behind it was a green truck that was parking to bring you your food. So these glasses take off those expectations of, I know what things look like, I know how they come, I know what they mean, and open to a more expansive experience where you allow it to come in on a bike or some roller skates, because you're not attached to the idea that what you want is associated with this thing or this person or this opportunity or this story or that past, etc. So whenever you're thinking about leaving where you've been camped out and you notice you're a little afraid because you don't want to get disappointed, remember that you don't have to feel that way if you put these on and keep showing up. Do we have questions, thoughts, feelings, comments? Is this making sense? I do this a lot with clients where it does not feel good, generally, to stay with what isn't working, what you don't want, the what you don't want door. To go towards the what you want though door, it just takes like a little tweaking, and it looks like asking yourself like, okay, if I don't like a working environment where my boss is disrespectful and pushes my buttons and gives me unreasonable deadlines, what might I like? Okay, well, I might like to have a collaborative relationship with my management. I would like to be able to express my ideas and expect them to be heard. I would like to have a reasonable work-life balance. That's the what you want though door. And so the work is to take your mental focus, what you're looping inside all the time in your head, what you're, not complaining, but let's say enthusiastically sharing with your friends and family. You bring your little chair in front of this and you think about this instead. Wouldn't it be nice to go to my desk in the morning and be excited to see who I'm working for, because I know that they have good ideas and I trust their leadership? Wouldn't it be great if I knew that if I felt overwhelmed, I could say no to more work? Like, that's what you want though door, and you start to imagine and focus on that, and that's what brings it through the door. And okay, so this, while I'm presenting this at kind of a not necessarily a removed perspective, but very much on the ground. So I got here through the work I do with clients. Your mind will filter your experience to stay consistent with what you think is true. If you have a boss that's shitty and you're thinking about that, and like, God bless you, you might be wrong. And that's a really tough pill to swallow, but a lot of what we see is only what we expect to see. And let's say that your dad wasn't really that supportive of you. You're going to see that in almost all authority figures until you call that template home and you start to focus on allow yourself to acknowledge what doesn't feel good and then connect with what you want, which is to say, you could be telling a story that seems 100% real to you. The whole way they're like this, it's the only way. That's not, which is crazy, but you might even be able to see it, like, just kind of zoom out a little bit and ask, like, where's this a good thing? Like, how's this a good guy? And it doesn't mean that there's not stuff that it's kind of like, it's not to say that those things aren't happening. It's just to say, like, maybe there's other things that are happening that you actually really do like or would want, but because you're so zeroed in on the character that you think that they are or who you need them to be for you to stay small or whatever, you miss them. One of the lessons I love from that topic is to practice loving your contrast, because it is necessary. Contrast allows us to know what we actually do want, so it's necessary and helpful. Shauna, I'm so happy you come in here and spout your wisdom. Thank you. Yes. So one way to explain contrast is, one way I understand contrast, I got bit by some fire ants last week because I walked into where they were living. Yeah, I wanted to get that picture of the sunflowers. And that was a really beautiful lesson for listening to myself, because I knew to stay on the path, and I thought that I was just concerned about walking across. Hey guys, about walking across a field with water, but no. Anyhow, if you see me touching my ankles, that's why. So contrast is basically, you can't know what something is until you know what something's not. So we have something like health, or something like connection or love. If you have always been in a state of good health, you don't really recognize what it is because you haven't been outside of it. So your ability to appreciate your good health is less because you don't have a framework for it. Similarly, if you have never really been in a dynamic that's respectful of you, you don't know that you are because you've never been outside of that. And what's really beautiful, or what I found to be really heartening, is that all you really need is a spark of inspiration to start to open your mind more to explore what might exist beyond what you've had. So what you're talking about, Shauna, is basically with contrast is to say, it's helpful in you being able to see and appreciate what is and what you might prefer. So today I'm talking about, if you're just joining, I'm talking about the what you do want though door and the what you do want though 3D glasses. And there are ways for you to organize your mind, your mouth, to align with what you would like to experience. And sure, we can look at this at a quantum or vibrational level, but at a very grounded level, on the groundest of the ground, your perception is filtered through the story that you're telling yourself about yourself and the story that you're telling about your life. The story that you're telling about yourself, I talk about this a lot in I Am Radio when I go on about identity, or when I talk to identity. You don't really know, you can't really see the story that you're telling. You don't really hear the story that you're telling, rather you see it. And so if you've been in victim roles or disempowerment roles or warrior roles, that's the story that you're telling about yourself. And it seems, again, it will always seem, or mostly seem, like this is real, this is the only way that it can be. But when you start to move things at the belief and the identity level, it changes how your, like, the information that shows up to you as important. And as that information landscape changes, so do your choices. And that's really how this kind of like magical stuff happens, is because it's always been right here, but it's just been under your radar because it didn't fit the story that you were telling. And so going back to the boss example, let's say that you have a really strong story that this person can't hear you, doesn't like you, doesn't care, etc. And all day long, you're looking for evidence that reinforces that. All day long, you're saying like, they didn't answer my email in time, or like they looked at me that way, or, they don't care about this. Those things, again, like, God bless you, they might not be true at all. That might just be how you're interpreting neutral events. And so you're creating this experience inside of you that makes you feel probably pretty shitty. And what you can do, like I said, if you find yourself, because you can't really be sure at first if those are stories that you're telling or those are present, is to allow yourself to, again, connect with what you do want instead. Well, I want to be in a situation, I want to be in a place where I have no questions about whether or not I'm being respected. I want to feel like what I share communication-wise matters. I want to feel comfortable to communicate about communicating. I want to, and you take the spotlight within your head that had been focusing on the like, oh, I don't like this, not right, this doesn't feel good, and you take your spotlight off of that conversation, off of those stories, and you move it towards what you want. And when I say want, it can sound really, I've been blessed, in contrast, to have the experience of, let's say, like the real world, where things are hard and they're heavy and they hurt. And then the experience of like, the mystical fairy, where it's like, I just walked outside and there was a rainbow umbrella passing, and under it a woman passing out flowers. Like, I've lived them both. And if you're, of the fairy type, you don't understand this world, and vice versa. And so I can tell you, having lived in this world, that it seems like, oh yeah, if I could have what I want, it's a really tough concept to take hold of and own, because it seems so different than the life that you're living. And from what I can tell, a lot of this world is still just conditioned from the idea of like, life has to hurt and be hard, and I'm not worthy of it being easier. And often it's not because you're choosing that, it's that you've been trained that, or maybe the environment that you grew up in a micro, like your family, or macro, like your city, didn't have the opportunity to demonstrate abundance to you. And so the way that you developed how you think about the world and how you perceive is from one of like, there's not enough. And so if you find yourself in the heavy, hard, like dark camp, that's okay. The way you get to like it's kind of like both are true, in that there are things that are hard and that hurt. And then it's also true that you can choose to perceive them in a way that allows them to move forward toward what might be more comfortable. So that would be the same as wearing the what you do want though glasses, 3D glasses, and saying like, I don't really like this, and I'm going to put I think I said this in one of the broadcasts last week, like my little green check of okay on it, and not be resistant and not set up camp at what you don't like, but to allow for it to become a part of your story and move it forward. So that would be the same as if you're going through a breakup, asking, instead of camping out at this is wrong and this hurts, you camp out at, you take your little foldy chair and you put it through, I'm learning a lot about love. I wonder what is here for me to explore as far as what is connection. If you start to ask questions about your experience in a way that's like, how is this for me? Then it transforms this stuff and allows for it to, like I said, kind of move forward and become something that is closer towards what you want. And again, like the what you want can sound a little flippant, but it's not. Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up soon. So if we did want to look at this more at a vibrational level, but again, this works or fits fits at a language level. So here I have the word fit, ironically, and in this definition, let's say you live in Miami, and your definition of fit is a little different than if you live in, like, I don't know, Wyoming or Pennsylvania or something. And how you identify, like how you feel about the word or how you connect to the word depends on how you define it. So to be fit in one place might be different than in another place. And yet, if let's say that you've never been what you think is fit your whole life, that's kind of great setup for, like I was saying earlier, the contrast of being able to really experience that sensation because you know what it's not, which is to say that you not being what you think is fit might be a perfect step towards fitness, which is to say, like, wouldn't that then be part of the word of fit because it allows for it later? And so we cling on to these different ideas and say, I'm not this, I'm too much of that, I don't do this isn't right, I'm not there. But most of the way that, like, I want to say all, you're using those words are relative. Like, you come up with these ideas and the frame moves based on, you could put money here. What is a lot of money to somebody might be like little money to somebody else, might be like, what is money? There are these words we use to say, I'm not this, and it takes your little power switch from on to off, and then because you're saying you're not that, you have the experience of not being that. And that goes back to the idea of the story that you're telling and the door that you're camped out in front of. From my perspective, I feel you on. Okay, that's all. I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Does anybody have anything else that they want to ask or share? So in summary, what I was saying today is that to be mindful, really, essentially this was I don't want to say argument for a perspective that might encourage you to explore how you might be more mindful about where you're focusing your energy and the stories that you're telling. And I said that, yes, of course, this is true at like a vibration or quantum level. And I guess I say this because those are words still to describe what can't be described. But it's also really true at just like a perception level. And perception is, there's a billion self-development quotes that are like, when you change what you look at, what you see is different. And it's true. I've been working with people for years, and it's true. And one of the ways that you see is through language, what you call things, what you think is and what isn't, kind of like Shauna was saying with contrast. And you come up with these ideas of where you are and what can't be, and they color your glasses. And then when you look out into life, it's like, I'm just stuck here. I can't do anything. And if that's where you are, like, love yourself for being there. Your spacesuit out of pretty much any inner or external experience is acceptance. You start singing a song about like, this might be okay, this might be the next best step toward where I want to go. I love me. It's okay I did that because it might be okay. Like, I love me. Self-love and acceptance will take you anywhere. And our culture makes us think that being critical or pushing or will or judgment does it, but does it? Okay, that is my presentation for today. Is there anything else from anybody? Beautiful. Okay. I also started to sell. It's a sign shop. This says God is love is backwards though. Thanks for coming out, Peter. Nice to see you. And I'm using art to express myself, but also help fund my work. And I also am selling Oracle deck cards right now, and they're pretty cute. These are not funding my work, these are printing at cost, but they are a really great tool. IMHO, created a booklet and some worksheets that go with them to help you tap into what's going on within yourself and the world around you, and maybe new or different ways. So you can ask, I have some questions and a lot of the descriptions for you to ask yourself to see if maybe there's another way for you to see what is. Everyone's reality is their own. It comes from their experience, environment, etc. Yes, thank you, Kevin. Yes, I agree. That's kind of saying like all these definitions are subjective. They're very personal. But when you use the word and everybody's using the word, it seems like it means the same thing because it sounds the same. But it can signal or trigger very different inner pictures for the person. And then lastly, I also support people one-on-one. If you have any interest in doing that work with me, I can help you see what you've got on your glasses and help you write new stories so you can, camp out different places. If you find like you listen to this and you're like, I've been camped out here for years, you might think then that what you want to do or should do is be mad or sad about it. No, boo, it's okay. It's okay. If you've been at the same door for a long time and you finally realize maybe that's not where you want to be, that's okay. You don't have to be mad or sad about it. That's just another door you really don't want to be at. It takes a lot of practice, or it did for me, to, I think it's different for everyone, but to let my old doors be. And it took a lot of feeling about them and coming to terms with what happened or what wasn't there. And that freed me from the connection to them. But I don't necessarily know if that's necessary or not. It seemed necessary for me. But if I don't like to use on this channel anyhow, my personal story that much, because I want to talk about the material, but sometimes it is helpful to see it in a frame. But you don't do the kind of work I do if everything's working. You know what I'm saying? So I had a lot to clean up focus-wise away from things that I needed to make me feel important, or to feel to keep with chaos, or to have a villain. Like my inner narration, the stories that I was telling myself, and they're very subtle. It's tough to see them at first because they've always been there and you never heard anything. So like going back to the contrast, you often don't know how your headspace is different because you don't know what it's not. So you don't even necessarily imagine that it can be different. And I'll tell you, like, if you're, for me anyhow, learning how to pick up my chair and move it beyond the things that weren't working for me or didn't feel good, and it takes a level of practice to be that honest with yourself, it's a game changer. It's a game changer, and it changes everything, because you change how you relate to the same people in your life, your family, your friends, the world. Like, it can all change because you're seeing it different. So maybe the dynamics, the cat and mouse dynamics you have with someone in your family, where it's like, tense or always uncomfortable, they change because you're not responding to them the way that you've always have, because you see them differently, because you're looking from a different place. And the magic, and that's like kind of like a playful way to say, like, the life that's available, the life force that's available by starting to change your perspective is really, it's mind-blowing. And I am forever grateful that I somehow started to move in this direction, because my life could have gone a very different way. All right. Thank you so much for coming out to these. This was my 8th one, maybe, but I didn't post one of the other ones. So I'll keep this up for 5 weeks, or until God or Intuition tells me otherwise, and I hope everyone has. Thanks for adding that, David. It's like a superpower. Yes, you are a wizard on these topics. All right, I love you guys. Bye.